Welcome back, Patriots, for another episode of the Bald Brad Show. It is officially, what is today? I don't have my watch on. Is it Thursday? Holy Lordy, it's Thursday. It's almost Friday. It's been a long week for me. Hell, I'm sure it's been a long week for a lot of you. But at the end of the day, Donald Trump is president, and well, that makes everything all better, doesn't it? I'm still on election high. I'm still feeling the greatness, baby. Whenever you're having a bad day, just always think about that, and it almost makes it instantly better. I mean, I'm going to be honest, you're going to put a smile on your face. You're going to feel giddy. You're going to feel like you just bought a box of Thin Mints from the Girl Scouts. You know, you're going to feel like maybe you had a nice little glass of whiskey. You're going to feel like it's Christmas again in 1995. I made that date up, but you'll have a date in your head. Folks, it's good to be back with you, and we got a lot of new people always joining us. Greatly appreciate everybody in the chat. Some of you, just really quick, say you're not being notified over at Rumble. Now, I went on the Rumble app on my phone. There is a bell icon that will email you or will send you a notification when we go live on Rumble. So what I will say is, even if you're on YouTube, because YouTube actually does not notify us all the time, you can hit that bell icon over at Rumble on the app and possibly even on the website and get notified when I go live or upload a video. So there you have it, folks. I double checked for some of you. Good to see you. And I apologize for being a couple minutes late. The internet is slow, so I don't know if Rumble's being DDoSed again. But if not, then hey, it's just the nature of technology. With that being said, let's jump into the news. You saw today's headline. Our lead story of the day is Ukraine has allegedly accepted partial ceasefire after a very good call between Zelensky and Trump. Ukraine has accepted a partial ceasefire with Russia on Wednesday after a very good phone call between President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Vladimir Putin. Now, we'll see how long this lasts. This could be a whole Israel, Gaza, Palestine thing where, it lasts for 24 hours and then it all goes down the pooper. The call came one day after similar conversation between Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Kind of awkward. They're both called Vladimir. And centered on many of the issues previously discussed in that call. Putin rejected an unconditional ceasefire offered by American and Ukrainian negotiators earlier this month, but did accept an offer to restrict attacks on energy infrastructure in both countries. Further negotiations will be conducted in Saudi Arabia and will include discussions on potentially expanding the partial ceasefire to include the Black Sea as an intermediate step to a full ceasefire. Really, Trump is the art of the deal, right? This is a guy that knows negotiations. He's ran negotiations for decades, whether that's through real estate or starting businesses, whether those businesses were failed ones or, prosperous ones. He knows how to negotiate. And one of the main things you need to do is just be able to get in the room. And it's like that for a lot of things. It doesn't even have to be for negotiations. Just you having your foot in the door is going to lead to possibly having a greater outcome than you were if you were never in the door in the first place. So this is how you start it. You got to start somewhere. And I think he's realizing, though, at the same time that it's a little bit more harsh or harder to get a deal done than I think he originally thought. Now, I think both guys on either side are, hard-headed and they don't like each other, and rightfully so. And here's the thing, though. At the end of the day, I still believe Ukraine is going to lose land. I still believe that Vladimir Putin is going to get a section of Ukraine. And then here's my even further outgrowth of what I think will happen. Donald Trump may have peace while he's president, depending who's next. We may have peace, depending if you get another Joey, or you get Gavin Newsom, or you get Kamala Harris. I think Vladimir Putin is going to invade Ukraine again. And for all you know, it might be that long game that he wants to play where he's just going to inch and take territory after territory, meaning you invade this time around, you get some territory. You maybe wait 8 years. I don't know if Vladimir Putin will be around then. He's getting kind of old. But then you go in and you inch a little bit forward and you take a little bit more land after you get done invading. Maybe that's the long game. And look, a lot of these countries are willing to do it. Look at what China's been doing. If you think that we're not going to go to war with China, and God forbid we ever do, I think you got another thing coming to you. Now, I'm getting that because that is what they said, the Chinese. They have talked about invading Taiwan. They have talked about going to war with the United States multiple times. They're building up their military. There's a reason why they're building that, or I guess are done at this point, that military installation in the South China Sea, just built an island just out of nothing. And they're building up their infrastructure. They're already building up their supply chains to be able to fund a war, meaning get that supply out there, which we've covered on the show. We've also covered leaked audio from the government itself talking about their plans. We have a memo that came out from a general about 2 or 3 years ago saying, hey, get ready for around 2025. That's when we think that the invasion of the Taiwan island is going to take place. So I don't want any of that to happen. I just want peace, man. I just want to live my life, dude. I want to hang out with the Patriots every morning. That's all I want. I don't know why we still have to deal with this in 2025, but here we are nonetheless. You also have this coming out yesterday. There is a quite lengthy statement from Caroline Leavitt during yesterday's White House press briefing, where she reads a statement from National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and previous Senator, currently Secretary of State Marco Rubio, on President Trump's call this morning with Vladimir Zelensky. So we'll hear a little bit about that.
When it comes to Ukraine, I do have a statement for you from the National Security Advisor and also the Secretary of State. First, I'd like to reiterate what the President said earlier following his call with President Zelensky this morning. He said he just completed a very good telephone call with President Zelensky. It lasted approximately 1 hour. Much of the discussion was based on the call made yesterday with President Putin in order to align both Russia and Ukraine in terms of their requests and needs. We are very much on track, and I will ask Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz to give an accurate description of the points discussed. That statement will be put out shortly. Well, I have that statement for you right here. Bear with me as I read it. Today, President Trump and Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky had a fantastic phone conversation.
Told you the internet's not great today, folks. Give me one moment. Brad, it happens so often. It's X. I don't know. I have like really, 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 really good internet. Here we go.
Requests and needs. We are very much on track, and I will ask Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz to give an accurate description of the points discussed. That statement will be put out shortly. Well, I have that statement for you right here. Bear with me as I read it. Today, President Trump and Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky had a fantastic phone conversation. President Zelensky thanked President Trump for a productive start for the work of the Ukrainian and American teams in Jeddah on March 11th. The meeting of the senior officials from both nations significantly helped in moving toward ending the war. President Zelensky thanked President Trump for the support of the United States, especially the Javelin missiles that President Trump was first to provide in his efforts towards peace. The leaders agreed Ukraine and America will continue working together to bring about a real end to the war, and that lasting peace under President Trump's leadership can be achieved. President Trump fully briefed President Zelensky on his conversation with Putin and the key issues discussed. They reviewed the situation in Kursk and agreed to share information closely between their defense staffs as the battlefield situation evolved. President Zelensky asked for additional air defense systems to protect his civilians, particularly Patriot missile systems, and President Trump agreed to work with him to find what was available, particularly in Europe. The two leaders also agreed on a partial ceasefire against energy. Technical teams will meet in Saudi Arabia in the coming days to discuss broadening the ceasefire to the Black Sea on the way to a full ceasefire. They agreed this could be the first step toward the full end of the war and ensuring security. President Zelensky was grateful for the president's leadership in this effort and reiterated his willingness to adopt a full ceasefire. President Trump also discussed Ukraine's electrical supply and nuclear power plants. He said that the United States could be very helpful in running those plants with its electricity and utility expertise. American ownership of those plants would be the best protection for that infrastructure and support for Ukrainian energy infrastructure. President Zelensky also thanked President Trump for continuing to push humanitarian concerns, including the exchange of prisoners of war. He noted they had just had a successful exchange and thanked the president for his leadership on that. President Trump also asked President Zelensky about the children who had gone missing from Ukraine during the war, including the ones that had been abducted, and President Trump promised to work closely with both parties to help make sure those children were returned home. They agreed all parties must continue the effort to make a ceasefire work. The presidents noted the positive work of their advisors and representatives, especially Secretary Rubio, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, Special Envoy Kellogg, and others. The presidents instructed their teams to move ahead with the technical issues related to implementing and broadening the partial ceasefire. The presidents instructed their advisors and representatives to carry out this work as quickly as possible. The president emphasized that in further meetings, the teams can agree on all necessary aspects of advancing toward lasting peace and security. That is a lengthy statement that was just given to me, so thanks for bearing with me. Our office will, of course, provide this after. When it comes,
yeah, I would say it was a pretty lengthy statement, but it was a statement that gets us inside the head of the president as well as his cabinet members, and I think it's important to bring that to all the patriots in the chat. So a few of you are asking, not just on X, but also Rumble and YouTube, if I will be discussing the Department of Education. I don't know if I have it queued up. I can't remember. We got quite a bit of stuff here at the top, but I can get to that, guys, if you would like, and I can answer that question for you in just a little bit. Absolutely. We have here a little bit of, if you want to get rid of the advertisements, there we go. MTA threatens another summer of hell of subway disruptions in New York City. Doesn't cough up billions as transit agency touts its great service. So we're going to go into this because then I have a clip that is about, I believe, New York as well, that I posted on X this morning. If you're not following me on X, you got to, because I post a lot of stuff on there. There's going to be hell to pay if the MTA doesn't get its way again. The MTA on Wednesday, this is the Transportation Authority, by the way, threatened another summer of hell if the Big Apple doesn't continue ponying up the big bucks, even as a recent watchdog study warned the city's payments keep snowballing. Not to mention, New Yorkers are set to get burned even harder, with subway and bus fares getting hiked up to $3 in August. Now, remember, they also have different sections of New York City for congestion. So depending on the time of day, for you to travel in certain parts of the city via car or vehicle, you have to pay a higher rate. So if you're not willing to drive anymore, well, guess where you're going to go? You're going to go in the subway system or the bus, which makes it impacted. The warning of summer transit woes came during a city council budget hearing where MTA officials begged for assurance the city will pay its share toward the agency's record-breaking $64.8 billion capital plan. The proposed plan to fix the deteriorating aging subway system assumes New York City will cough up $4 billion, but that amount could increase as the state budget isn't final and federal support is up in the air under new President Trump. I always find it interesting that the states, just like we do as individuals and Americans, we reach out to the federal government for everything nowadays. Again, your tax dollars shouldn't be going towards the subway system or somebody's transit in their city. By the way, I live in California. Let's say I lived in Los Angeles. I don't think you guys should be responsible through your tax dollars to pay for the metro station in Los Angeles. And that goes with a little bit of the Department of Education, by the way, is the dismantling of it. Completely for it, by the way. You don't need the Department of Education. We had education before the Department of Education. We're going to be fine after. And I'm saying that as an educator. You don't need it. And there's a good conversation to be had that why are you, which is mostly the Department of Education, using your tax dollars to funnel money to another state when it should be going to your state, by the way. So no, we don't need the Department of Education. Now that's a synopsis of what I'm going to get to if we get to it. But it's the same way here. Allow New York to build their own damn subway. I shouldn't be responsible for it. I'm so tired of paying everybody else's bills, man. I got my own bills to pay, just as you guys got your own bills to pay. Many components are falling apart and need to be replaced or preserved. If we don't do this critical work, it's not exaggeration that we'll be looking at another summer of hell. The subways infamously went kerflooey during the summer of 2017 as a series of subways broke down and I guess regularly here and left people stranded or even trapped in hot train cars or hurt in derailments. Well, here's the thing. If you weren't spending $2 billion on illegal immigration, you might have money to spend on transit. Look at that. It's a novel idea. I know. When it turns out that you want to execute the laws in the books and you don't want to make yourself a sanctuary state, a right to shelter city, well, maybe you could pay for things like building your infrastructure. It's not difficult, but for them it is. For them, see, empathy, there's a thing. Empathy in politics is harmful. You want people to be able to have a good life and a better life, but that doesn't mean that you are entitled to be here illegally and siphon the funds and, take hold of our welfare state, basically. Remember, when there was mass I guess it depends how you look at it, but when there was mass migration in the United States early on in 1900, there wasn't a welfare state. You came here and received nothing. Now you come here, you receive rental assistance, you get your rental housing paid for in some cases. You get $9,000 or $84,000 from localities like Chicago. You get lawyer fees paid for. This is all by you, by the way. You get their meals paid for, their transportation paid for, their education paid for. You get their medical paid for. By the way, do any of us get that type of assistance in here on all those accounts? Maybe one. Mind you, we live here. This is our home and we live here. And that was supposed to be for us, but yet it's going to them. But then you get people that vote in that crap, like New York City. And when things start deteriorating because all your money is going to, I don't know, somebody else that isn't supposed to be receiving those benefits in the first place because they should never be here. Well, all of a sudden, it's a problem. All of a sudden, you don't have money to pay for anything. Again, Democrats suck. I should just say this. Government sucks at everything.
It's dirty, and the city has spent billions of dollars on migrants, whether housing and feeding them, and they can't spend millions of dollars to clean up your subway. And so the question might be, well, you're the Secretary of Transportation. What role do you have in New York's subway? Well, we give millions of dollars a year to the New York subway, and part of the requirement is they keep it safe. And so what we're going to do is say, listen, if you can't keep your subway safe, if people can't go to the subway and not be afraid of being stabbed or thrown in front of tracks or burnt, and we can't consider the subway a subway and not a homeless shelter, we're going to pull your money. And it's not just New York. It'll be Chicago. It'll be Washington, D.C. The American people expect their subways to be places where they can come in and out of cities and do it safely. And by the way, wouldn't it be nice if it was clean? Yes. So again, if they don't get on board to change their ways, we're pulling cash. And again, we shouldn't have to do that, you guys. They should go, just good government would dictate that we have clean, safe subways. They should want that. They don't want you to drive your car. They want you to take a train. Right. Well, if you want me to take a train, make the train safe, make it clean. But if you won't do that, we're going to pull money and give you the incentive to make that happen. You mentioned stats, Lawrence. From today to 2019, crime is up 56%, assaults up 56% in New York subways just in the last 6 years, since before COVID. So crime's not going down. If you ride the subway, crime's going up. And so we're going to take action. We're not going to fund dirty, disgusting homeless shelters that mirror as subway stations. It's
Sean Duffy is, I'm telling you, all his cabinet picks are great. Secretary of Transportation does an awesome job, and he's out there. And what I love is Trump doesn't have to tell him to go out there. Let's just show you. Can we just show you the difference between subways in Japan and Russia? Look at the way, mind you, these are homogeneous countries. So they have and share a culture. Mind you, we do here, but we're a melting pot of cultures. In Japan, there's no trash cans. You hold on to your trash until you get to said destination, and then you throw it away. I'm going to say that again. It is frowned upon as a society heavily to throw your trash on the ground in Japan, that there's not even trash cans. You're expected to carry your trash most often till you get home, and then you throw it away. They clean their subways. Their subways are sparkly. There's not a lot of crime taking place. You have Russia with freaking chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. Now, that could be AI for all I know, but I've seen footage of their systems. But ours, you know, it just looks like it looks like crap. It looks like crap. Now, check this out. McDonald's and Target stores in Brooklyn officially ban unsupervised teens because parents aren't parenting. And if you think it's bad with the crime like this, these same kids are in the education system, folks. And so if you're wondering, man, why is my son or daughter struggling? Don't blame it on the teacher. Maybe they can't teach. Maybe they can't even get a word in. Maybe you have people acting like little jerks in the classroom that shouldn't be in there in the first place, should be in a separate room for creating shenanigans so your kid can get a nice education that you're paying for. But now you have teens running rampant. Let's go.
They make a mess. They're talking about drills and fighting, and I don't approve of that.
There's no disputing the reason why two of the more popular businesses in this Flatbush, Brooklyn neighborhood are banning teens 18 and younger who are not accompanied by an adult. Last month, we told you about the McDonald's on Flatbush Avenue, which did just that during after-school hours, following the lead of the Target store right around the corner, which implemented a similar ban around the clock.
I was assaulted in this Target right here. These children nowadays, they're doing smoking and they're attacking people. They're, stealing things and going in pockets and cutting pocketbooks.
They make a mess.
You want to know why? Because it's a Democrat-ran area, and Democrat-ran areas are soft on crime. When you're soft on crime, we say it all the time, what do you get more of? The crime that you're soft on. And now you have teens running rampant for God only knows what reason, and creating crime. And because they want to go lax, oh, how could you ruin little Johnny's life? He doesn't know any better. He shouldn't have stolen that. I'll share a true story. This is a hand-to-God true story. I won't even exaggerate it one bit. I must have been 7 years old. And I don't know if many of you know Joann's, but it's a fabric store in California. I was 7 years old and my mom sewed. She used to actually make our clothes. In the 90s, it was very normal to have like matching shorts and shirt, right? It's just like, it was the 90s. And I went inside Joann's and I was a little kid and it was around Easter time. And so there was a little Easter basket on the bottom shelf and my mom's walking around, I'm like, oh, okay, well, there's a little, so I grabbed an Easter egg. And then what I did, there was like lint on, like under the shelves in stores, there's like those lint that gather up from like people's like freaking dusty skin and hair. Well, oddly and grossly enough, I was picking it up and putting it inside the egg. And so when I was done filling it up with little fuzzies, I put it in my pocket and I left. Well, mind you, there's a point to this. I get to the car and my mom is loading up. We had a old VW Volkswagen, the ones with the springs in the seats that are always poking you in the back with no AC. And you got the hand crank, you're like, fucking, it's hotter than Africa in this thing. Because it's just a tin box. The thing is metal. For those that drove a VW Bug, you know what I'm talking about, like the 1960 style ones or whatever the hell year it was. And so she sees like this bulge in my pants and I wish it was something else, but no, it was the egg. And she goes, what is that? And I said, oh, I got this. She goes, where'd you get that from? I said, oh, I got it from the store. Look, and I opened it up and there's a bunch of little fuzzies, a little gross, people's dead skin and stuff in there. And she goes, you can't steal stuff. And I'm like, I didn't steal it. I found it on the floor. And she pulled me in there. She drugged me back into the store and I had to look at them in the face and apologize for it was horrifying. I was crying. I was like, I'm so sorry for taking your egg and cleaning up your floor. I'm so sorry. And I never stole again in my entire life. But you know what? That was a good parent. That was a learning moment for me that there's consequences. Sometimes you need a parent. And if they're not willing to do that there, you got to go in and do it other places. But it wasn't the police that did it. It was my parents. And these kids and parents are doing a lack of parenting their kids. Exactly. The shiny vinyl seats. You know what the hell I'm talking about, Lulu? The seats in the summer too. It's hotter. It's baking. It's hotter than Africa outside. And you get in and you barely touch the back of your arm on the seat and it singes you. I did have a good mom. You guys seen her. She's been in the chat before. I did have a good mom. A little harsh at times. You need to be hard as a parent. When you're a kid, you guys know this. When you're a kid in the moment, you don't like it, but later on in life, you really appreciate it. And, my father passed, it's going to be 7 years this year. And, I passed, I think I was 28, 29 when he passed. And I'm not to get morbid, but, I'm really thankful for the things that he taught me while he was here. And, especially now that I don't have another guy to go to for advice, you always go to your pops for advice. You're a young guy, you don't know shit. And, I got to figure it out all myself now. So life definitely is not as easy as it would have been if I would have had him. But I got the Patriots now to help out and I got my mom. So then I got my wife. I got all this stuff. So yeah, it's sad. He was one of my best friends. I got along with my dad extremely well. We butted heads at times, but I was very close to my parents. Like very, 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 very close. So yeah, it was tough. But anyways, you guys wanted me to get to this. Here you go. Trump set to sign order dismantling the Department of Education. President Donald Trump is expected to sign an executive order today dismantling the Department of Education, a long-awaited move that would fulfill a key promise he made about his campaign trail. Now, I'm not going to go too far into this, really, because I want to kind of give you more of my idea. So there's going to definitely be pushback on this. The reason is because Congress was the one that put forth the Department of Education, if I remember correctly. And so you kind of have more of a constitutional question, very similar to his dismantling of, say, like the USAID, where the conversations to be had is he or does he have the legal authority to do it? Because if it's something where Congress has the keys to the purse, then some of the stuff you might have to go through Congress. We'll see. He's going to try to do it because he thinks he has the right. And I think he should try it nonetheless. But here are some pros to getting rid of the Department of Education. One, it restores state and local control, which I think is how we are supposed to be ran as a country. I'm not concerned about the state of New York. I'm not concerned about Alabama, where some of you live. I'm not concerned about Idaho. I'm concerned about where I live in Southern California. I'm not even concerned about LA County. I could care less. I'm concerned about where my kid goes here, and that as a local community, we're offering the best service in terms of education to our son and daughters. By the way, that's why I'm also not totally in support of the voucher system, because if somebody's traveling hours up north to get out of that area, but I'm having to pay for that kid's education in my area through my property taxes, I'm sorry, I'm actually not for that. Those property taxes, then if that voucher's there, and I think it might work out that way, I should be getting that person's property tax money so that I'm not paying for that kid's education, which I think the conservatives are rolling out through the voucher system. And I think that's already built in place. But furthermore, it also reduces the federal outreach, by the way, which is important. That's how the country is supposed to be created. Like many of you are saying, the government doesn't need baby daddy. It's not for the handouts anymore. You need to go to your local and state levels to receive that funding. Also, it eliminates like $80 billion of waste up there on the top end of the federal government, which we need to do. We need to cut waste. And I don't understand why this is such even a talking point. I don't understand why Democrats are all up in arms of us cutting. Mind you, they don't offer any solutions. They just go start burning down stuff. It's like, what do you do when you're $36 trillion in debt? It's not a good path. It doesn't end well. If you like eating shoes, meaning the leather off shoes and bark off trees, which happened in the Great Depression, by the way, and soil out of the ground just to find some nutrients, then sure, let's continue this path of endless spending. When the value of the dollar collapses, when the economy collapses, you end up possibly getting hyperinflation. Nobody can feed their kids. You're going to have a good swath of Americans actually pass away. It's almost going to be unrecoverable. The entire world will hit at least a recession itself because everything's backed by the dollar. Then that leads to dire consequences, which is going to lead to people trying to find natural resources. When you don't have those natural resources to find, well, guess where you go? You go find them somewhere else. Well, now you got another war on your hands. So not only are you starving trying to feed your family, but now you're going to get shipped off to war because these idiots wanted to burn down our buildings rather than take care of business and cut the budget. It's not difficult. None of it's ever been difficult, but the Democrats love to complain about everything. That's the obvious thing to do. Furthermore, it encourages competition and school choice. I think competition is great, but here's the problem. Seeing now both sides of the coin, I've seen both public and private, and this is why you need people to start coming out talking about the education system. Private schools, along with public education schools, when it's built about competition, people, what is that competition? Not is it just money, but it's also that grade. And so people are going to start handing out grades like they're hotcakes because they want your business. You're going to go somewhere where you can pay money to go get that A and that high GPA so your kid can get into a university that you want. It's not real. So the competition between private schools across the United States is trying to not get a quality education. That's there, but it's, I'm paying $30,000 for my kid to go here. Shouldn't they be getting an A? Well, no, not necessarily. But that's why I'm actually not for necessarily even the competition within the school system anymore. That's one viewpoint that has changed in my political life that I'm not for anymore. It's a misnomer that competition between schools is going to lead to a better education. Let me just tell you, I've seen with my own eyes that is not the case. That is not the case. your education doesn't change. It's the handout of the grade that is going to change because that's what people's expectations are and that's what they're going to pay for. So if I don't give an A to this person, guess what? They're going to transfer schools. They're going to go to the private school down the street that is going to give them the A at the end of the day. And now they got that business. So it's a business in terms of just handing out free grades is what it's going to be. And how do I know that? Because I've seen it with my own eyes. It improves school accountability as well because your locality's there. Your locality is concerned about the community. The community will end up having outreaches and taking place stuff. So there's gonna be here's not many cons, by the way, to this. That's the crazy thing. There's not many cons. One, you have the legality of it. We'll see what happens with it. By the way, I don't know why Trump is just doing executive orders. I get it for now. He has Congress. He has the House and Senate. Now's the time, by the way, to start doing this stuff, not wasting, because when you have midterms coming up, it tends to swing the opposite direction. So you got to use this time wisely and get stuff done. I don't know why he's just doing all these executive orders and not in conjunction working with Congress to get the stuff codified. He could do it. He could do it. Disruptions to funding and then implementation issues, which kind of more or less goes with the legality of it. But like I mentioned, I'm full for it. Get rid of it. We don't need it. People are like, well, what about the funding and the grants? You can redistribute certain parts of the Department of Education elsewhere inside the government. You don't need an entire department to do it. You could get rid of the department, and then the things that you absolutely need, you could just put those in different places. Well, in other news here, we got leaking is unacceptable. White House addresses Dobbs leak 3 years later. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, hit that like and subscribe button, folks. If you're new here, jump into the live chat. We would love to have you. We got a lot of new viewers, a lot of new listeners. And if you want to become a member over at Rumble. We also have a donation tab, which a lot of you have been using on my website, which thank you so much. It notifies me every time somebody donates, or even a lot of you are starting to do the reoccurring donation on the website that you don't have to do. You just got to sign up one time and it does it. Thank you so much. I appreciate all your efforts. And I always tell you guys that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It helps support the show greatly. We're not a big show here, so every dollar helps. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said Wednesday that President Donald Trump's administration has an interest in finding leakers when questioned about the consequential Supreme Court leak during a press briefing. Now, the nice thing about this is he has Elon Musk behind him. And Elon Musk, there's been stories, has done crafty stuff in his own company to figure out who's leaking. It's pretty cool, the stuff that he's found, to the point where he will actually put little markings in different emails. And so when they find the leak, he can find the markings in the emails that were untraceable, but only traceable to him. It's fabulous. It's really awesome. Well, Leavitt addressed the question from the Daily Wire on the May 2022 leak of the draft decision in Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization, the case that eventually overturned Roe v. Wade. Remember how that came out early and everyone's like, well, how did this happen? And nobody was held accountable. Quote, I know generally speaking, the president has an interest in finding leakers and he believes it is unacceptable. Leavitt pointed out that the Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has taken tough action on her agency on leakers. Leaking is unacceptable to the president and to the leaders across the board in this cabinet, especially when it's put people in harm's way. The leak prompted legal or illegal protesting outside the homes of the Supreme Court justices. We all remember that. Hundreds of attacks on pregnancy centers and Catholic churches, including fire bombings and vandalism, and inspired a man to travel from California to Maryland with the intent of killing Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Remember when Karine Jean-Pierre stood on the podium and she would not condemn these protests? She said, well, they have a right to be out there. You do not have a right to be out there with a Supreme Court justice. No, you don't. That does not work that way with the law. Hate to tell you, but it doesn't work. But, you know, the law, whenever it's pushing a narrative, it's always in their favor, regardless of whether it's right or it's wrong. It's always in their favor. It's always going to work out for them. Now, authorities did arrest 26-year-old Nicholas Roske in 2022 in Kavanaugh's Maryland neighborhood, carrying a bag full of weapons and burglary tools. After he called the police on himself, court filings show that the individual described himself as actively suicidal and said he wanted to do something positive before I die by taking out Kavanaugh. Just they're psychos out there, folks. Always remember they're psychos, and a lot of them are in the Democrat Party. Don't get me wrong, there's psychos on our end too, but they're mostly conspiracy theorists that think aliens abducted them. And maybe it did happen. I don't know. I wasn't me that went through it. But the question should be, who was the one that released and leaked the documents? I think we would like answers, and we're all hoping in this administration that we get those answers. Furthermore, Leavitt also slammed resistance from bureaucrats who don't want to see change after the Daily Wire story. So the press secretary just the other day slammed former leadership of the United States Institute of Peace for physically barricading themselves in the building to prevent political appointees of this administration from assuming control. Levitt was responding to a question from the Daily Wire on the antics of USIP's former leadership. Quote, "We were made aware of this story by individuals at Doge and Elon Musk's team, and also the State Department, who were unable to access the building," Levitt explained to the Daily Wire during a briefing at the White House on Wednesday. Quote, "It became very clear that there was a concerted effort amongst the rogue bureaucrats at the United States Institute of Peace to actually physically barricade themselves essentially inside of the building to prevent political appointees of this administration who work at the direction of the president of the United States to get into the building." Levitt noted that the staff barricaded the doors, disabled telephone lines, internet connections, and other IT infrastructure within the building. Now, let's just pause for a moment. If any of us did this in the private sector, do you think you would be going to work the next day, or do you think you would not be going to work the next day? If any, by the way, it doesn't have to be all of them, just one of them. If you barricaded the doors at your office or your place of work, you think you would have a job the next day? Maybe. You should be written up. I'd imagine you'd probably be fired because you're stopping that business from making money. So we don't need to watch the clip here, but that is what's going on. The clip is long as why. And I also want to get to this next one. But like I said, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, hit that like button. It does really greatly support us. Would love to. Caroline says, "Good luck dealing with the school board. I am proud of you for speaking up. You are an amazing grandmother." Yeah, you got to talk to your school board. I'm telling you what, you're going to be dealing with a lot of lefties. And they're hard to talk to, let me tell you. Boy, oh boy, there's nothing up there. It's a pretty remarkable thing. It's remarkable these people roam around the earth. And I'm talking about leftist progressives. They just walk amongst us, man, breathing the same air. Well, furthermore, Steven is back in the mix, baby. We got a couple clips of Steven here. I know you guys like listening to him speak, which is why I try my best to make sure I incorporate him, even when it doesn't work out. But Steven says on why judges are going after President Donald Trump. We have him here speaking on the White House lawn.
Real answer, Rob, is that the communist judges are issuing injunctions against President Trump because he is the first president in our lifetimes to reassert the rule of law and constitutional order in this country. To say illegal aliens cannot live here. To say that foreign criminal gangs cannot menace our citizens. To say that unelected bureaucrats do not control the direction of federal policy. To say that foreign aid is not a right, but a foreign policy function vested in Article 2.
It's doing it to us again. It's killing me. Yeah, you got to go with it, though. Sometimes you don't have control over this stuff.
Vested in Article 2 and the Commander-in-Chief. These are the core principles of the Constitution that undergird our entire democracy. The injunctions are an effort by the radical left to prevent the American people from having the restoration and change they voted for. Yeah. The way these judges look at it is they say, you don't get to have the country you want. You don't get to vote for the change you want. They want all power vested in the bureaucracy and the judiciary, and none in the American people. Yeah. This issue was litigated, Rob, for the last 8 years. The issue of rogue judges, the issue of radical left judges, the issue of local judges assuming awesome powers that do not belong to them. And the American people went to the voting booth and they said, we want democracy back, we want our freedom back, and we want Donald Trump back. And that's what they're going to get, Rob.
I hope so. We will see. Now, I've always said, you guys, I'm not a big fan of executive orders. I just want to be clear on that. I'm actually not a fan of it. I think it's important to have the checks and balances. I think it's important for every branch of government to do the thing that they're supposed to do. And in some cases, the executive orders are an overreach of the executive branch. And that kind of started many, many decades ago, mostly under Barack Obama, really. His type of executive orders. Obviously, there's always been executive orders, but it's really, as time gone on, gotten a little bit too much. It's gotten a little bit too much where we are giving the president too much authority. I like the things Trump is doing. That doesn't change the idea of that. Should we or should we not be doing certain executive orders? Should we be leaving it up to Congress? Most of them, I want to tell you guys, I do think that they should be left up to Congress, especially when you're dealing with money. Now, do I like that with Trump in office? No, I don't. I want stuff to be fixed quickly. But we do have a process, and I think it's important to hold to it. We'll see if Donald Trump wins in court. You know, if he does, hey, great. But remember, always put the shoe on the other foot and think, what would happen if Joey gets back in office. Now he's not, right? I mean, Joey's gone. Joey is just, I don't even know if he's not here. He hasn't been here for years. He's really not here now. But let's put Kamala Harris. You know, she could do all these executive orders and do a lot of things that we don't like. And if that's the ticky-tack thing that we want to have in politics, then so be it. But that's something we have to decide as a country. Is that the type of country that we want, where depending on who's in office, in terms of the offices of the presidency, is that who we want to be able to dictate our lives on what we can or can't do? Or should it be left to the Congress, who's supposed to be our constituents, who is supposed to be representing us? Just a question.
Not have a democracy where single individual district court judges can assume the full total powers of the commander-in-chief. Even on the Supreme Court, it takes agreement of 5 Supreme Court justices to change a federal policy. 5. A single district court judge out of 700 cannot set policy for the entire nation, let alone on national security and public safety issues. The president has been clear that he has tremendous respect for Justice Roberts and believes it's essential the Supreme Court crack down and stop this assault on our democracy from these radical rogue judges that are usurping the powers of the presidency and laying waste to our entire constitutional system. You cannot have a...
I want to be clear. It's not that every executive order wouldn't work out. It's just there's some that I think are kind of walking a fine line between, I think this is something that Congress should be doing versus maybe the executive branch. And then there's some that he just has unfettered access, especially when it comes to national security. His deportations of the Tren de Aragua gang members, the violent gang members, like, I think all that stuff should happen. I don't even think there's a question about it. But it's odd that you have and this is kind of what it was referring to, the lower court judges dictating what the president can do in terms of national security. To me, that's bonkers. That is an overstep for sure. Furthermore, whenever I try to find Scott Jennings in the mix, I try to. He's talking about these same courts, these lower courts. And in this case, John Roberts warns Trump against calling to impeach judge.
I am quite sure that some of these judges are dramatically overstepping their authority. And I think not just in the rulings that we talked about in the intro, but in other rulings, there are legitimate questions about whether the president's core constitutional functions are being impeded. I would hope that the Supreme Court would get involved in some of these questions sooner rather than later so that we can get some clarity here, because I think it's crazy to think that individual district court judges should be able to stop the president from shipping terrorists out of the country. Or even tonight, there's a ruling on the military saying the commander-in-chief of the military can't set standards for who can be in the military. All of these rulings from these individual district court judges, I think it's ludicrous, and the Supreme Court ultimately is going to have to be the final arbiter.
And I think Scott's right here. Now, the question is, are they willing to even hear it in the first place? We'll have to see. Who knows? But, Betts makes a great point. Make EOs, put them in, and then, put them through bills to turn them into laws and stick. I mean, that's what I think needs to happen, right? Because if Trump doesn't, and he's talked about this, the administration has, that they need to codify this in the law. If they don't codify it in the law, then there's nothing stopping the next person, guy or girl, doesn't matter who it is, from coming in and then removing those same executive orders. That's why he needs to act, though. But I'm not seeing much in the way, folks. I got to admit, I'm not seeing much in the way of him working with Johnson here, of trying to get stuff through. And maybe he is. I'm, again, there's a lot of news out there, and I just try to keep up myself. I'm one man, but you got to start getting this. There's not a lot of time. Again, we can maybe think there's a lot of time if we have the midterms, and maybe we do, maybe we don't. Hell, I don't know. But it's we all know traditionally how it swings, right? We have all 3 branches right now. Might not have all 3 branches here in the next year and a half. So we will see what happens. As always, I know I keep repeating it, but if you can hit that like button, folks, it really does support the show. If you're new here, well, welcome. Glad to have you. We do have a membership option if you want to join us. There's not really any perks other than the fact that you get your comments shown first before everybody else. We have like 14 to 20,000 comments a month. So you get shown first, and it's greatly supportive, but also a great way for you to get your voice heard amongst the followers. J-Rad says, I finally get a chance to say good morning. Patriots down on boys, back, J-Rad! Welcome, J-Rad. Good morning over there at YouTube. Glad you're able to join us for a live show. If you're over from one of the other shows that we've been rating recently, well, welcome to the Bald Brad Show. We're glad to have you. Now, it's not just Russia, Ukraine. Then we hopped in a little bit of domestic stuff. Now we're going back to foreign because Trump is warning Iran to immediately cut off support to Houthis. Is it Houthis or Houthis? Doesn't matter. President Donald Trump warned the Islamic Republic of Iran on Wednesday to immediately cut off its support for the Houthis, an Islamic State terrorist group in Yemen. Reports are coming in that while Iran has lessened its intensity on military equipment and general support to the Houthis, they are still sending large levels of supplies. Well, yeah, I mean, it turns out when you give them $10 billion of humanitarian aid, it shores up $10 billion that now they could put towards terrorism. But when you have John Kirby, I think he was the national security advisor of the Biden administration, well, he comes out and says, no, it's fungible. No, they have to go through our suppliers to use that money. Really? Yeah, you're trustworthy, man. After what we got done seeing you spend money on, I don't trust you one bit. Hell, they have coding or their lack of that we don't know where the money's going. It's not traceable. So I don't trust anything about this humanitarian aid. They also told us it was frozen, but then we found out that it wasn't frozen and that they moved it from South Korea to Qatar so that the people, meaning the Iranians, can get their hands on it in a more efficient manner. And then guess what? They secretly let them have access to it without telling anybody. And you had to dig that up through, I think, Pentagon Papers is how we found it. Let the Houthis fight it out themselves. Either way, they lose, but this way they lose quickly, Trump. Oh, God. He sat there drinking his Diet Coke. I love it. Tremendous damage has been inflicted upon the Houthis barbarians, and watch how it will get progressively worse. It's not even a fair fight and never will be, he added. They will be completely annihilated. I'm really curious, though, if Donald Trump's tactics of talking like this really does anything for terrorists, because these people their brain is twisted, obviously. They're evil. I don't think Donald Trump's words really sway their tactics all that much. Maybe for some it does, but when you're really fully enveloped in something and you fully believe what you're doing is right and it's for religious purposes, that's kind of like the element that's really boosting it, very zealous. I'm not sure that this will have anything to do with anything, but let them fight it out. I'll tell you what, the missiles that are be coming down, you ain't gonna know what hit you. You ain't gonna know what touched you. Boom, missed. So I like Trump and his rhetoric. This rhetoric needs to be had. Democrats don't like it. The progressive left don't like it. But truthfully, I don't care. It's nice to have a president that's putting people in their place. It's nice to have a president that is stern after dealing with Joey for the last 4 years. And in some cases, Joey didn't even mention anything. Brad, I think you should consider sending us to smaller channels, someone who would be excited for 50 or 100 viewers. Also, long-term, I think you'd get more returns from it. Could be wrong, though. I was thinking the same thing. Let's do this because we're going to, we end at 7. We'll have everybody come over to Rumble before we raid somebody. Krager, find a channel right now for us and let me know who it is, and we will raid them if they're still around. So find a couple channels for us, and maybe Karen too. Everybody find a channel that you think, and I'll pick one. So just let me know their username of the channel, and we'll pick one and we'll raid them. We'll do a smaller channel and we'll give them like 100 people, 100 plus. Let's do that. I think that's a good idea. And it's a little fun. You're taking care of small creators, and we're a small creator ourselves. So we'll do that. So if you don't know what we're talking about, those over at, we're not going anywhere just yet, by the way. We still got a while. Don't you leave me. Don't leave me in the trenches. I gave everybody over at YouTube my Rumble link. What we do now at the end of every show over at Rumble is we all join the chat, and then we send everybody all my viewers. And it's a great way for them, especially if it's small, it's a great way for them to feel heard, have other patrons join their chat. And honestly, a lot of their viewers end up joining our show as well. So it's a great way for us to grow. It's a really great way for us to grow. And we can plug our show in there and stuff like that. Yeah, the Bongino one wasn't that great of a one because we kind of got lost in the mix. And I agree with you guys. Anyways. More news on Iran here. Trump gives Iran deadline to reach nuclear deal. President Donald Trump has informed Iran that it has 2 months to accept a nuclear deal that halts its ambitions for a nuclear weapon, or else U.S. military will end it for them. Axios reported that Trump made his deadline, clear to the Islamic regime in a letter he sent to the Iranian Supreme Leader, the Ayatollah al-Khamenei. Although it was not clear from the report whether the countdown began when the letter was delivered or when negotiations with the Trump administration began, which was my question. When did this start? Because we could be coming up on 2 months relatively quickly. Trump envoy Steve Witkoff delivered the letter to the United Arab Emirates President Mohammed bin Zayed in Abu Dhabi several days ago. I'm doing pretty good at reading this with the light shining in my eyes, I got to admit. The following day, an official representing Zayed or Zayed, traveled to Tehran to deliver the letter to Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas. Now see, I spoke too early. Aragachi. Tamagotchi. Khomeini responded by claiming that the United States, I don't know why I did that, was trying to deceive the world's public opinion and suggesting the negotiations will never happen with the Trump administration. Iran held negotiations with the Biden administration for years, but nothing ever came of it. And Iran was able to amass large stockpiles, 60% enriched uranium that could easily be enriched to 90% uranium that needed to be able to build a nuclear missile. And I think they're really close. I think they're very, very close here. We'll have to see what takes place with Iran, and hopefully we can get a deal done. But I don't think the Iranians want to deal with Donald Trump, to be honest. I mean, heck, you saw what they did trying to get rid of him. Accentuate the I, Brad, when you're reading Japanese names. Well, those weren't Japanese names, but that's why I went like that, because it was a joke. It sounded Japanese, but it wasn't Japanese. And, you know, I got a flat tongue. I'm American. I'm an American. I'm all American boy, baby. Mr. Yamagami. Furthermore, we got updates on Snow White. Now, if you didn't see my my YouTube short, let me see if I can pull it up. I hate, like, it's kind of like, I'm not trying to be narcissistic? I'm not trying to just show my shorts, but it's a helpful thing to show here in terms of what I'm about to talk about. So let me actually just pull up my YouTube short and we could just watch it together. Let me see if this changes you guys though. Hold on. All right, here we go. Tickets to see Snow White. We have a popular movie theater in Southern California where a total of 4 tickets have been sold ahead of the March 20th release. You have only 2 at 4:30, 2 at 7:30, and a whopping 0 at 10:30. Then, if you look at Friday, which is supposed to be a big movie day, you have a total of how many? 0 sold at 4:30. Friday, again, you have a total of, what is that? 4, 6, 8 tickets sold. And then 10:25, a total of 0 tickets sold. Then you move into Saturday, you get the same result, folks. 0 tickets sold. You have a whole whopping of 2 tickets sold. And these are opening weekends, folks. I think you get the idea of what I'm referring to. Snow White is not doing well right now. And Rachel Ziegler's in the news where she's complaining. She is complaining. White executives asked her to prove her ethnicity for West Side Story. Snow White actress Rachel Ziegler complained about being asked to prove she was Latin descent before being cast in the 2021 Steven Spielberg film West Side Story. So here we are 4 years later, and now it's all about race again, bringing up old stuff. The 23-year-old celebrity discussed the experience during a newly published interview with Allure magazine. There's confusion because I don't have a single ounce of Latin in my name, Ziegler told the outlet. When I was in the running for Maria in West Side Story, they kept calling to ask if I was legit. I remember thinking, do you want me to bring my abuelita, my grandma, in? I will. I'll bring her into the studio if you want to meet her. Can you tell Kamala Harris the same thing, by the way? Can we get Kamala Harris's abuelita in just to confirm that Kamala Harris is what she says she is? The actress complained how a bunch of white executives insisted she prove her identity to them. I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that they're white. It's just maybe that they're executives. It's an odd thing to me that we keep bringing race in as the progressive left, that is a dictator of anything. Wow, you can't produce or you can produce melanin in your skin. Has nothing to do with anything. But for them, identity politics is everything. Ziegler is from Hackensack, New Jersey. Her grandmother immigrated from Colombia to the United States in the 1960s, while her father is Polish. You would think that she would have a little bit more respect for America and stop pushing this agenda that she has. And it's not just her. You have this going on. The Dwarves, folks. This whole movie is just a nightmare for Disney, and they brought it upon themselves. Dwarves are protesting Snow White after CGI used instead of actors. The company and the ideology of the left, if there was any time now to use dwarves or small people as an opportunity to have a job in Hollywood, this would have been it. But they go, nope, sorry, can't do it. We're going to use full-blown CGI. Little people actors said they will be protesting Disney Studios after they opt to use CGI for the Seven Dwarfs instead of hiring them for the upcoming live-action remake, which would be the obvious thing. A lot of things that Disney does is not the correct route when you could have just done the obvious thing. Snow White, folks, it was already created. That is where skin color actually matters because it says that her skin is white as snow. That's Snow White. Not to mention the region of which it's being done and involved in. I don't need to go down this road. Brad, just, you get it. You get it. Speaking of the Daily Mail, actress Ali Chapman, who stands 3 feet 8 inches tall, said the whole point of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is right up there in the title. Correct. But when you are a progressive lefty with an agenda, it doesn't matter. You could take a full-blown white person and make them black when it doesn't even make sense. Just race swapping everything. We lost an entire decade of solid filmmaking because of the race swapping, the CGI, the terrible scripting, because they got to push their narratives down our throats. We lost an entire decade plus of good content because Disney wanted to go woke. The Seven Dwarfs were the stars of the original 1937 film, which is classic, loved by millions of people. Disney has made a live action film, and instead of giving 7 talented little people the chance to shine, they scrapped up everything and used a CGI. And I'm actually for them protesting. And it's not just because it's Disney. I'm actually for them protesting. Unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. Here's an update really quick with Chuck Schumer. He was on The View. He was getting hassled by The View hosts the other day for accepting Donald Trump's and the Republicans' CR resolution, their continuing resolution. And so now Dems are pissed and saying, hey, maybe now it's time to step aside. So now they're eating their own. Democrats are so disheveled. For the first time in a while, because normally they're really united on things, for the first time, they're actually eating one another and going after each other. You have this representative, Glenn Ivey from Maryland, saying it may be time for the Senate Democrats to pick new leadership. During a different event, Ramirez from Illinois nodded and said yes when asked whether Schumer should retire or step down, according to Axios. And the list goes on and on and on. So they're going and eating their own, which I absolutely enjoy and love seeing. If you're over at YouTube, head over to Rumble really quick. Here is the link. What we're going to do is we are going to raid a small creator here and give them some viewership and help them out a little bit. So while you're coming over, I want to go ahead and give you an ad read really quick for 1775 coffee. You know we love them, folks. And if you are drinking that weak coffee and not Rumble 1775 patriotic coffee, baby, you're doing something wrong. Weak coffee is for the weak, and at Rumble, weak has never been part of the mission. No fillers, no fraud, and no settling for mediocrity. Just like Rumble's 1775 coffee. It's single origin, small farm, hand-picked, specialty grade coffee that stands for quality, free speech, and calling out BS when it matters. That's exactly what we do here on the show. Forget stale, forget mass-produced beans, roasted just enough to hide the flaws. Dark roast hits like a Trump tariff, baby. Medium roast keeps it bold without the bitterness. And Vitality Mushroom blend is really good. Real energy and lasting focus. No synthetic garbage. For K-Cup pods, which some of you have, whole beans, or for fresh ground coffee, go to 1775coffee.com and use promo code STUDIO, all caps, for 15% off. Again, that's 1775coffee.com. Use promo code STUDIO for 15% off and start your morning with coffee that stands for something. Oh, and by the way, every dollar you spend on Rumble 1775 coffee enters you to win a Cybertruck and $30,000 cash, which would be nice to have, because then you could really become a member. All righty, we got people coming over. Who we rating, folks? Who are we rating? So let me see here. Are we cool? So we're looking at, are they live right now though? They have to be live. So here, let's do this. I'm gonna pull this up. Let me, the person has to be live. So let's go to this. We'll go to politics. Who do you guys want? Because Vince is big, right? So we could do a small creator. This is just easier to do it this way. MAGA Mornings might be good. Should we raid? Let's raid MAGA Mornings. I actually know him. You guys cool with that? He has 135 right now. See if you guys are cool with us rating him, or we could do somebody smaller if you would like. Again, if you're over at YouTube, hop over to Rumble really quick. We're ending the show. It's 7 o'clock. I gotta get to work. Okay, we'll raid this person. Okay, give me 1 second. All right, Patriots, we're raiding them. Here we go. Plug the show and give him a shout out. Give him a shout out.